Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Butterfly Project. I'm Eric Keiles, Chief Marketing Officer for Square 2 Marketing, and I'd like to introduce my business partner, Mike Lieberman.
Welcome, everybody. Super excited to have you guys here with us at the Butterfly Project, and I am absolutely sure you're going to be super impressed with the content we have for you today. Thanks for joining.
Mike, give everybody an idea of where the name the Butterfly Project came from.
Yeah, sure. So when we started putting this content experience together, we wanted to talk a lot about transformation, and specifically transformation as it relates to some of our clients. And what a better metaphor for transformation than the butterfly. A relatively ordinary caterpillar turns into a beautiful butterfly, and we've seen some of our clients go from wonderful little caterpillars into beautiful butterflies over the years, and we thought it would be a really nice metaphor to help all of you have a similar experience.
That can't be any more true. And the basis for what we do to help our clients become those beautiful butterflies is a methodology that we developed called the Cyclonic Buyer's Journey. Today's session is going to be focused on explaining to you all of the granular details around the Cyclonic Buyer's Journey so that hopefully you can think differently about your sales and marketing and make the changes necessary to really improve results. So let's dive right in. In our first session, we want to talk about, like we call, the Cyclonic Buyer's Journey. It's the underpinnings of a really good sales and marketing program. So in today's webinar, we're going to give you why marketing and sales has changed. We're going to talk about the traditional funnel and why Mike and I want to take it out back and beat the crap out of it. We'll introduce you to the Cyclonic Buyer's Journey. We'll show you some of the feelings that your clients have when they're buying your products or services. Mike's going to take you on a very nice journey through the 8 different cyclones. We're going to talk about the tactics and the metrics for each one of those 8 stages. I'm going to give you a little introduction on how you can make 1 + 1 = 3 for your efforts, and then we'll wrap it all up with some really good questions. So let's dive right in. This is the number that is the reason that we do what we do, 23%. And you might be saying to yourself, what the heck is 23%? Well, in a recent HubSpot survey, it was revealed that only 23% of companies reported that they hit their revenue goals. And that's a sin because we all start businesses and try to grow our businesses to get to the vision we had when we started the businesses. But because of a million different factors and the fact that marketing and sales is changing so dramatically, sometimes we miss the mark, and that's a shame. So our goal today is to change that number for you guys. But why are all these companies missing their revenue goals? It's really quite obvious. And the reason is because buyer behavior has changed forever. What you see here is a picture of Times Square. If I ask you what you see in this photo, you see advertisements and logos and lights and electricity and all sorts of things to grab your attention. But let me ask you one simple question. What is the one thing and the one thing only that a millennial sees when they're walking through Times Square? And the answer is their phone. Now, this is not a webinar about marketing to millennials. We could do that another time. But this is a conversation about all of these expensive resources that are being expensed to attract new buyers are completely lost on a new breed of buyer. If you can't reach a millennial through their phone, you can't reach them at all. Today, Mike and I aren't going to ask you to spend any more money on advertising or marketing, but we are going to ask you to consider migrating some of the things that you are spending money on that aren't getting you the biggest bang for your buck into ways that people want to find you. And we guarantee you that that migration will give you an immediate pop in your marketing results. If you look back to the famous Peter Drucker, he made an interesting comment. He said, the aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well, the product or service fits him and sells itself. And that's really a powerful comment because few companies take the time to really stand in the shoes of their buyers and then develop a strategy from which the buyers makes it obvious to the buyers that you're the obvious choice to do business with. And that flip-flop from talking about yourself to really understanding what buyers want and the journey that they're going on, once again, will give you a nice pop in your marketing results. So let's talk about old school and new school. If you talk to any typical marketing or sales professional, I guarantee you in that conversation, the concept of the funnel will come up. And unfortunately, we are proud to pronounce today that that funnel is dead. In fact, did you know that the original concept of a sales funnel was invented in the year 1890? I think now in the year 2021, we probably have some different viewpoints about how people buy and sell stuff, especially due to the internet. In fact, if you Google sales funnel and you look at all the images that people post, there are a million definitions of the sales funnel out there. Everybody has their own version of the stages they go through and what milestones people have to pass in order to make a sale. And it's just a nightmare trying to figure it out. Our goal today is to simplify how people go on their journey to buy products or services like yours and make it simple for you to understand how you could change some of your sales and marketing activity simply to match up. In fact, in a great article by Jared Dotson, he comments how the new sales funnel is not even a funnel at all. It's a complex web of individual buyers' paths, and they intersect at sales and marketing touch points. Well, think about how different that concept is to just a very linear up and down sales funnel. In fact, a recent article in Ad Age also says that, the way customers buy is no longer a simple path from awareness to prospect to sale. It's really dead. And that's why we want you to stop and think differently about the way that you organize your sales and marketing to once again comprehend how you can match up to that buyer's journey. And on our final little piece of content, the customer journey is not rigidly linear as depicted in the sales funnel, and it's circular. It's a network of these touch points. And for you to understand all those stages will really give you a very large competitive edge. So it's time to smash that old sales funnel and put it out to pasture. We'd like to introduce you now to the Cyclonic Buyer Journey. When you think about how your clients feel when they're buying products or services, it's not a very pleasant experience. There's so many pieces of data swirling around them. There's influencers telling them what they should buy and how they should feel. In fact, I'd like to show you in a very small video clip how your clients feel when they're trying to figure out which person to buy from. I think you guys get the picture. In fact, one of my favorite stories that matches up with that video is my brother-in-law who was looking to buy a new car for one of his daughters, my niece, right? And first he thought, well, I'll just, give her my old car and I'll get a new car. But then he realized, wait, my old car isn't safe and I should be safe for new drivers, and started Googling which are the safest cars online, and then found some brands and then went out to the dealerships to talk to those folks, and they gave him all sorts of information. And at the end of the day, he said, you know what, we're just going to hold off on this and we'll figure it out. She'll share my car. It's so confusing and there's so much data around there. It's really hard to make a clear-cut decision. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mike, and he'll start taking you through that cyclonic buyer's journey.
Thanks, Eric. So when we work with clients, it's important that we have a methodology and a framework to help us structure our work and help educate the clients into what the thinking is behind the work that we're doing with them. And that was really what got us thinking about this buyer journey model. What could we use to help the clients fill in the blanks and help the clients understand the thinking behind the marketing and sales structures we're creating for them? So the cyclone, it's obviously, it would probably be more likely to be called a hurricane because it feels like you're in a hurricane when you're like Dorothy in Eric's video clip. But just think about how much content you're exposed to every day on the internet, on your phone, in your email box, on social media. It can feel a bit like a hurricane. Now, we use the cyclone as our metaphor because the cyclonic buyer journey sounds a little better than the hurricane buyer journey. But if you go to the next slide, we wanted to literally identify as many stages of the buyer journey as we possibly could. And again, the reason we wanted to do this is not to write a book or to do a webinar, but to really help structure the programmatics for our clients. So the cyclonic buyer journey has to cover the three major stages in which your prospects and customers go through when they interact with your business. There's the marketing stage when they're getting to know you. Eventually, they get to know you enough to need to talk to you, and that's typically the sales part of the process. And then if everything goes well and they decide to hire you or sign or purchase from you, they become serviced by you. So the main cyclone that's spinning around this, marketing, sales, and service, obviously addresses all aspects of your business. And we then broke it down into 8 individual stages. And I'll go through each of them with you now so that you can have a lot of clarity around what each of them mean. And again, if you keep thinking about that Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz video, the cyclones are very illustrative of what the experience might feel like for your prospects. They could be in an awareness stage and circling around and digesting content and get thrown all the way down into the evaluation stage by a very good offer that maybe one of your competitors has provided to them, encouraging them to talk to sales pretty quickly. That sales conversation may not go well, kicking them all the way back to the education cyclone again as they start their process over again. So this supports some of the quotes and the data that Eric shared with you earlier. This is in by no way a linear or a sequential process. The cyclonic piece of this metaphor is very relevant for the way people are tossed about during their buyer journey in today's environment. So there are 8 stages, and you can see we've covered the entire buyer journey, starting from pre-awareness, because you should know that right now there are people who are perfect for what you do and are unaware of your business or your products and services. So they may actually be unaware that they actually have an issue. However, they do have one or could potentially have one and should be concerned about that. So this pre-awareness stage is one that is honestly ignored a lot through a lot of traditional marketing tactics. There are some newer marketing tactics like account-based marketing that is specifically designed to go after people in that pre-awareness stage. So it was our effort to try to call this often unknown stage, or certainly unidentified and underutilized stage, as the beginning part of our journey. And you can see that it stretches between marketing and sales, because if we are going to execute an account-based marketing program, then that's marketing and sales working together to get in front of these people who are yet unaware. They have yet to start a search for products and services like yours. The second stage is awareness. So the big difference is people who are now alerted to the fact that they have something that they need to consider. Now, they may be reactive in this awareness stage in that they are open to interesting information related to their problem or challenge that comes to them. They have not taken the step to be proactive to go out and educate themselves around this particular issue. That would happen in the education stage. So in awareness, they're open to information, but their pain is not acute enough to encourage them to be proactive about their search. That's the education stage. The people in the education stage have decided, you can go back to the other slide. It's okay. They've decided that they need to get educated about this particular issue. We will probably talk a number of times about the way human beings make purchase decisions. A lot of the thinking that is behind the cyclonic buyer journey is driven by the way humans process information, the way the brain works, the reptilian part of your brain, which controls the purchase decision. People make purchase decisions emotionally, and then they rationalize them after that. And I can give you a lot of examples in your own purchase behavior where you would see something like that transpiring. If you went into a furniture store and you saw a sofa, your first response is going to be like, wow, I love that sofa. It's beautiful. Wouldn't that look great in our house? Those are obviously emotional responses to this product. And then you start talking about, well, let's check the size and let's, make sure it doesn't clash with the other things in our room, and talk to me about delivery options and how much is it going to cost? And is there all those very specific questions are trying to rationalize your emotional decision. So during education, people are trying to satisfy that emotional component of their purchase decision. They are looking for information. The better you can educate them, the more likely they're going to be to want to do business with your company, the more likely they're going to want to be to continue their buyer journey with you versus one of your competitors or some other options. The consideration stage is when they've narrowed down their choices. So to give you an example of what happens in the consideration stage, if I'm a VP of marketing at a company and I need help, there are so many options I could consider. I could send my team to get training. I could hire a couple of new people. I could buy some software, or I could hire an agency. I could hire a big agency, a little agency, an industry specialist agency. There's so many options. So in consideration, I've recognized that I need help, and I'm now going to narrow my choices down. I might narrow it down so far that I've decided that, you know what, I don't want to hire anybody. That's going to take a long time. Training might stick or might not stick. Software might be a little bit early for me to decide there's a technology solution here. I'm going to hire an agency. I'm going to hire a mid-sized agency, and this is what I'm looking for. Now, typically, the next stage is evaluation. I have to now evaluate those 3 to 5 agencies that I've decided I want to talk to. And this is typically where the buyer journey transitions from marketing to sales, because I can only get so much information online. Now, today's buyer behavior, the way people buy today, they want to get as much information on their own as possible. Let's face it, we don't want to talk to salespeople. We want to self-serve ourselves as much as possible online and through conversations with other people and searches and discussions with people that we trust, so that we really only engage sales when we absolutely have to. And that's typically during the evaluation stage. Honestly, if someone wants to know how much it's going to cost to work with Square 2, we have to have a sales conversation with them. We have to get to know them in a more intimate way. And that handoff from marketing to sales is what happens during evaluation. We're going to go through a process of assessing these 3 to 5 different agencies and deciding which is best for us. Which brings us to rationalization, because during these first 5 steps, I've gotten to know you. I've decided whether I know, like, and trust you. I've started to become emotionally connected to whatever my option is in some way. And when I get to the rationalization step, I'm now asking those other more detailed questions that I still need asked, and I still need answers for those, but it's a much different part of the process. I'm not really evaluating anymore. I'm just really looking at my one option and making sure that all the check boxes are there and I'm comfortable with the answers I've gotten. Again, people will not make a purchase decision until they feel safe. And this rationalization stage is a big part of how people get to feel safe. Yes, I can afford it. Yes, it's going to be delivered on time. Yes, I understand the scope of work. All those very specific questions that can really only be answered by sales in many B2B scenarios happens during rationalization. And the last sales stage and the 7th step in our cyclonic buyer journey is the decision-making process. There is still a final step that has to get executed in order for someone to make a purchase decision. And that is basically signing your agreement, signing your paperwork, saying yes to your proposal, whatever that last important step, agreeing to terms, and all those things are very final. And in a lot of cases, sometimes scary. And again, we want people to feel safe in the decision-making process. A great example of this is when you send a 20-page legal contract to your purchasing buyer, and they look at it and they're like, I purchase things for a living. I'm not an attorney. I now have to send this to legal, where the attorneys reside, so that they can go through your 20-page legal document and make sure I'm not doing anything that would put our company in jeopardy. That process, the people on this call are probably very comfortable and familiar with that process. Where is the deal? How come they haven't signed yet? It's in legal, right? So we want to try to avoid having our sales process get bogged down in legal. So there are things that we can do in this decision-making process that are also important to providing a really great buyer journey. And last but not least, delivery. Honestly, it's a very frequently ignored stage of the buyer journey because it's not sales and marketing. At this point, marketing has done their job, sales has done their job. It's now up to the rest of the company, the customer service people, the delivery people, the product people, the client services people, to actually deliver what sales and marketing promised. But it is equally as important as all the other stages, because if delivery fails, then your cycle, the cyclonic buyer journey will not spin in a smooth and efficient way. It will slow down. You will not have referrals. You won't get any references. You will not be able to use your clients as advocates for your business. You won't get the testimonials and case studies you need to drive marketing and sales. It will literally drag the entire cycle to a halt. So we have to talk a little bit about delivery and what needs to go into that stage so that your entire buyer journey cycle can spin quickly and efficiently.
Mike, comment a little bit about when clients come to Square Two and they're looking for marketing services, their focus is typically on new deals. But lots of times we find that by looking at their existing customer base, there's some revenue opportunities. What comments do you have on that?
Yeah, it's an excellent point and a common scenario, because when most company leaders start thinking about revenue growth, their first move is let's get more new customers, right? Let's get more new clients, let's get more leads. Let's do a better job closing the leads we have. And that makes perfect sense, but it's really a third of the exercise, and it might not even be the easiest way to generate revenue. When we look at revenue growth within our clients, we are very often looking at current customers first. Why? They know you. They already like you. They already trust you. They're already buying things from you. And when we ask them, well, what percentage of your current customers are buying everything you sell? Very often the answer is not many. It could be 20 to 30% of the customers actually buy everything that the company offers. And there's an amazing opportunity to now market to current customers who you don't have to convince, who you don't have to get to trust you, who you don't have to take them through these other stages of helping them feel safe. They already feel safe. They just need to be introduced to these new services in a slightly different way. So when we readjust their thinking around revenue growth, we very often look at marketing to current customers as one of the first and easiest ways to drive revenue.
So, Mike, do me a favor. You have 8 stages here that are quite theoretical, right? You've done a wonderful job explaining that, but how does someone really dive into the tactics necessary in order to actually move the needle on some of these cyclones?
Yeah, so it's an excellent question. And again, when we talk to prospects specifically, one of the common themes around those conversations is, well, we just don't know where to start. I mean, there's just so many things for us to do, and we have limited resources and limited people and limited budgets. How do we know what tactics should we execute and in what sequence, and which ones kind of connect nicely? So again, to try to help our clients understand this, one of the ways that the Cyclonic Buyer Journey facilitates a discussion around tactics is clearly showing what tactics typically target what parts of the buyer journey. So for instance, if you were able to identify who your best prospects were, there are a whole set of tactics that can be used in this pre-awareness stage to go after those people and introduce your company and your products and services to those people who may be unaware. And the best example of this is account-based marketing, which includes outreach by sales to targeted prospects and people specifically within those companies who should be aware of your business and potentially have a need for your products and services. And that entire account-based marketing approach is designed to introduce your company, products and services to them so that they say to themselves, aha, I didn't realize I needed this help, but I do, and I'd like to talk to this company that reached out to me. And there are a whole set of other tactics that fit into this same stage. Cold email marketing. Now, I might not be a fan of cold email marketing campaigns, whether you're purchasing the list or scraping the list, but regardless, it does fit into this category. You're going to buy a list of potential prospects for your business, and you're going to attempt to get through their defenses with your email campaigns to introduce your products and services to them. Paid social media advertising, the same way. We're on our Facebook or LinkedIn accounts and we see an ad or sponsored media. That's someone trying to get our attention around something that should fit us because of our demographics. Banner advertising, retargeting banner ads, content syndication, which are these ads that pop up while you're on the internet and follow you around through a cookie that was placed, on your phone or on your laptop. These are all similar attempts at penetrating your ecosystem with a an offer or a message that should engage you because of who you are, the profile that makes up your persona. Affiliate marketing campaigns is typically done through a partner. Influencer marketing is typically executed because you're on a particular blog and I'm providing content to that blogger. They're going to share their audience with me, and I'm going to get your attention through a similar way. Even a traditional trade show or event or conferences are really the same kind of approach. You're going to a trade show or a conference because you expect your prospects to be there, and you expect, because you're under the same roof, that they will come by and see your story and want to talk to you. It's a one-to-one kind of in-person tactic that replicates some of the digital tactics we talked before. It's tried and true, except for the fact that this year all those events are canceled. So, even traditional print media, it's the same exercise. I read a certain magazine, I put an ad in there. They're expecting that since I read that magazine, I match a profile, and when I see that ad, I'll be moved to act. So these are all tactics that can be deployed for this pre-awareness stage. And in fact, there are similar ways to organize all the tactics in your tactic portfolio. So here are some tactics for the awareness stage, and you'll see that they are a little bit different. I'm not going to go through each of these because my philosophy has always been, content marketing is something that most of us understand to one range or another. It's not something that we really need to go into greatly. But, if someone is aware that they need help, then organic search engine optimization might be a tactic that will drive them to your site if they do a search and you come up. Paid Google ads might present an ad to them when they're looking for something similar. If they land on your website, the design of your website and the pages on your website and the way you optimize their visitor experience can move them from awareness and into the education stage if your content is rich enough. So there are a lot of tactics that can be designed for people in the awareness stage that look like this package in front of you.
Mike, would you classify pre-awareness as outbound and awareness as inbound?
I think generally, I think that's a fair statement and a common definition and description of pre-awareness. A lot of outbound activities generally fall into the pre-awareness category. I think awareness is a little more, it's a little more of a bridge tactic between pre-awareness and education, because I may be aware of an issue and not searching, right? I know it's something that I should be interested in, but I'm busy and I haven't decided to care enough about it to take proactive steps. So, someone in the awareness stage who was reached out to proactively with an ABM campaign would probably be more likely to respond to that outreach than someone who's not even interested in looking around for information like this. I think inbound becomes very relevant when you're talking about education tactics, because this stage represents people who have decided to proactively go after information. They want to educate themselves about a purchase decision they're about to make or thinking about making or have been instructed to make. So that's why content marketing is so important, because this is where I am actively searching. I am actively engaging in audio content, video content, infographics. I am responding to emails that nurture me more and provide me additional information. I'm signing up for webinars and events, and I'm going deep on relevant website pages. I may even be chatting with people on these sites to get additional education and questions answered. So I think the traditional definition of inbound probably falls more appropriately in the education stage. And then, like I said, once some narrowing of that decision making exercise starts to take place, then there is a narrowing of the content that's digested. So you'll see some similar tactics here. However, I'm looking now from my video marketing perspective, I'm looking at customer stories, because I want to hear how other businesses like mine have had relevant and successful experiences with an agency I might be considering. I might be looking at some blogs that are very specific to working with agencies, or digesting content related to in-house or outsourcing some things that I might be looking at Might also be more aggressively looking for advocacy at this stage. I might be asking people specifically, have you had some experiences with agencies like this? I am looking at an agency like Square 2. Do you know them? Have you heard about them? Do you know anybody who worked with them? So, that customer advocacy component starts leaking into the tactics as early as the consideration stage. And from a marketing perspective, this is interesting in terms of a tactic like lead scoring, because one of the behaviors that is typically illustrated during this consideration stage is I might see someone coming back to my website over and over and over and over and over again. So if my lead scoring model provides additional opportunity to earn points for return visits and visits to certain pages like pricing or case studies or videos from customers, that might give you an indicator in a quantitative way in terms of this particular prospect is in a consideration stage of their buyer journey, which could potentially allow you to proactively alert sales and have them proactively start to contact that prospect, which again creates a very interesting and more remarkable experience with your business. To have someone reach out to them and say, hey, I saw you were on our pricing page. Is there anything I can help you with? Is certainly not a typical service experience for most businesses today, and one that can really be used to separate you and get that emotional connection you're looking for in a well-architected buyer journey. And then, as I mentioned, this is a critical stage, the evaluation stage, because this is where that crossover happens. So, your website has to be designed in a way to encourage people to want to talk to sales. Your content has to be created in a way to show value around the sales conversation. This happens often with our prospects. Their main offers on their websites in terms of engaging sales is get a quote, speak to a rep, contact us. These really, even get a demo. I'm a big believer that the demo is, to most prospects, a sales call in disguise. And these offers are really thinly veiled sales conversations. And prospects today, I think, are turned off a bit to those kinds of offers. So we typically help clients create much more value-oriented late-stage buyer journey offers. So when they want to learn more about their own buyer journey, the salesperson is the one positioned to deliver that last stage of content, which then gives the sales person an opportunity to see whether they're qualified and start to take them into a traditional set of sales plays. But case studies, success stories, reviews, content for the sales team to make that sales experience wonderful, email templates for the sales team, sales training to get them to really embrace their role as a guide and an advisor, as opposed to someone that's trying to convince or pressure. This is big in terms of making this evaluation tactical stage and this evaluation stage of the buyer journey really hum. What we see a lot is marketing has done a wonderful job creating an experience, and then when they get in touch with sales, sales is old school sales process. When can I send you a contract? What do you want to buy? Oh, can I get you pricing information? And they really are not ready for those kinds of conversations yet. They're still learning, and sales needs to understand that their job is to guide and advise at this point in the process, not necessarily try to push them into a product so quickly. And there's plenty of time for sales to do what sales does. And the rationalization stage is a really great opportunity for them to do that. Oh, you have questions about this? Let me send you a reference reel for some of our clients who are going to talk about the things you're asking me about. Let me run an ROI model for you. Let me show you some of the things we've done for other clients like you. Let me share some additional content with you that will help you feel safe and comfortable with how we do things at our company. So there are very specific tools that sales can be provided to make this rationalization stage as condensed and short and as painless for your company as possible, to quickly move the client from that emotional decision through this rationalization stage and get them into that decision-making phase where we're really going to focus on getting that signed name at the bottom of your agreement. And again, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here, but there are still places to bungle this here. Too aggressive with your sales process, sales proposals that are confusing or too complicated. Eric can talk to you for days and days about recommendations decks that talk all about you and not about your customer, right? This is when you present, you want your presentation to be 95% about the customer and how you're going to help them and what they're going to benefit, and help them envision what their company is going to look like when they're done working with you. They already know about you. They've spent 75% of their buyer journey learning about you. You don't have to reiterate all those things about you at this stage in the buyer journey. It should be all about the customer. And I mentioned earlier, contracts and agreements are a great way to bungle this and slow it down and extend sales process and reduce close rates. So you really got to look at what are the requirements of those contracts and agreements and make them as simple as possible. And then you have to deliver a great service experience. If we can't get references and we can't get referrals and we can't get social media posts and we can't get reviews, you're not going to have the assets you need to get that buyer journey to spin effectively. And in addition to that, Eric asked very early on, there's a tremendous opportunity to drive revenue from customers also. So upsell and cross-sell marketing programs, customer service communications, customer surveys, asking for someone's opinion on how you're doing are wonderful ways to just, put the finishing touches on an amazing experience, so that when someone does talk about your business, they're talking about it in a really glowing and remarkable way. And that is going to encourage more people to want to do business with you.
So
And
so very confusing. You just went through 50 different tactics that any good sales and marketing team can consider when building their program. How do you figure out how to build your own tactics map?
Yeah, it is complicated, and the best way to do it is to really identify where you're going to focus. Unless you have an unlimited budget, which will allow you to kind of do all of this all at once, and that is very rare from our perspectives. Where are we going to focus? We're going to focus at the front end of the buyer journey, pre-awareness and awareness. Here are the 6 tactics we're going to use to focus on that. We're going to focus in the middle of the buyer journey. We're going to do a lot of inbound education and consideration. So here are the tactics that focus on that. You may decide that you want to start with the sales process and really create an amazing sales process. If any of you saw Eric and me battle it out at Inbound 2020, we had a very rich and lively conversation about what comes first, sales or marketing. The answer is they're both right. Like if you started and to create an amazing sales process with the sales tactics, you will do a better job closing your current set of prospects, right? So how could that be bad? If you start with marketing and build an amazing marketing experience, you will have more prospects for sales to execute. And eventually you want to get into both of those and really get those working together effectively. And then don't forget about the delivery piece. Don't forget about the revenue that's kind of hidden in your current customer base. And it's really about priorities, right? Where do you want to start? I typically say to clients, line them up and start at the top and knock them off as you go down the list. You can always reprioritize if things in the business change, but create a prioritization mechanism and start at the top and start working your way through this.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about something else, Mike, because I can do all these tactics, but I'm not quite sure what's working and what's not. So can you give us a little bit about the data behind these 8 cyclonic buyer's journey stages?
Absolutely. So again, I can't reiterate enough that our thinking behind the creation of the cyclonic buyer journey is to give people a framework on how to deal with some of these questions, like the one Eric just asked. So typically, clients think about metrics from a tactical perspective. You can go to the next slide if you want. How is the email campaign working, right? How is my website performing? How are we doing on social media? How are the landing pages converting, right? They're very tactically oriented. In some cases, you have people who are looking at campaign performance, which might be a collection of tactics, but it's still looking at performance of a specific campaign. What I'd like to suggest to you today is that you look at your data from a buyer journey perspective, right? And what you're looking at in front of you here is a pre-awareness dashboard. It's a dashboard that basically highlights the performance of all of our pre-awareness tactics. How are we doing getting people who currently knew nothing about us to know something about us and to want to talk to us about potentially doing business together. So you can see the metrics here are from a variety of tactics and a variety of campaigns. We have a total available audience number that we're using to see how we're doing going after the market. We have targeted accounts and targeted individuals. We have a performance metric on how we're doing against connecting with those targeted individuals and engaging with those targeted individuals. And that's different. When we run ABM campaigns for clients, you have to get a connection in order to get an engagement, because these people don't know you. And technically, you don't know them. They haven't asked for your information yet. So you have to get them to say, yes, I'm interested in being connected to you. And then you have to get them interested and engaged in having an ongoing conversation with you. So those two numbers are different. You have to look at what percentage of those engaged people are actually sales opportunities, and what percentage of those sales opportunities are actually turning into customers, and then how much revenue have we generated as a result of this pre-awareness of our campaigns and energies and prioritization around pre-awareness activities. So each of the stages of the buyer journey has a set of metrics that go along with it. And this is just one example of one dashboard. You could make it look any way you want in order to help you identify what's working and what's not working. Here's an example of an awareness dashboard. And you can see here we're looking at site visitors and visitors from organic search and new contacts from organic search, sales qualified leads from organic search. There's a social media panel here, since awareness can sometimes, social can sometimes be an indicator of how you're doing getting people to pay attention to you. Visitors versus sales opportunities, site-wide conversion rates. So again, we've collected just some of the awareness-related tactics to present the idea that you can look at the performance of your program in a slightly different way. And we have dashboards like this for every stage that show you a different set of metrics depending on what's going on in the business. This evaluation dashboard is a little more sales oriented. Who's downloading our evaluation content, the performance of the emails that sales is sending out and moving those people through your funnel. How are you doing converting sales qualified leads to sales opportunities and sales opportunities to proposals? And what's your conversion rate on evaluation content? So again, these are just examples. You can set up any dashboard you want. We've tried to keep these simple so we can tell a simple story. But this is a slightly different way to think about data than maybe you have in the past. And I'll just leave you with this thought about data. These dashboards are great, and a lot of people, in our opinion, feel like the dashboards are the big accomplishment here. We have dashboards, we have access to data, but I want to encourage you to not think like that. The dashboards are not the end game here. Really, the end game is the insights derived from the dashboards. So, when you look at something like this and you see, well, our net promoter score is 34 and it's up 11% from last month, that's great. But you have to know whether you're happy with 34 or not, right? You may have decided that 54 is your goal. And in this case, you're 20 points away from your objective. So while this is up and to the right, that's nice, but you have more to do. What are you going to do to get from 34 to 54? And that's really what I'm talking about. The data has to inform your action plan, and the data has to derive insights that create intelligent action plans. So the data is great, the dashboards are great, but you really have to use that data to uncover the insights in the numbers and then create that action plan that will really make your program hum.
That's a great segue, Mike, because when we look at all the metrics that you can view for different 8 stages of the cyclonic buyer's journey, and then even if you choose 1, 2, or 3 for each stage, you're talking about a lot of different metrics that you have to review and analyze. But there's a reason for that. Here's the good stuff. When you're looking at the metrics on the different 8 stages of the cyclonic buyer's journey, you can really create a 1 + 1 = 3 compounding effect. So what the heck do I mean by that? Well, what I've done here is selected one metric from each one of the stages, okay? If you look to the 3 columns to the left, that's where a company might be today. They're going after one sector in the pre-awareness stage. They get about 68,000 people a month coming to their website. In the education stage, they get about 1.5% of people that come to the website that convert or download a piece of content or offer up their contact information. About 33% of those people go from marketing qualified lead to sales qualified lead. And out of those sales qualified lead, about 50% of them turn into sales opportunities, and we're able to create proposals. Well, when we do those proposals, we know that it takes about 90 days to close a deal. And our close rate, which is about 20%, means that we will close about 8 deals per month in this state. Now, after they become clients, we have a reorder rate of about 10%, meaning 10% of people reorder something after they become a first client. And based upon that, we do about $314,000 worth of business with a $34,000 average ticket. Not so bad. But using Mike's explanation of all the different metrics that you can look at, let's say we've chose these 8 to improve. Let's say instead of going after one target sector, we add another target market and we add it to it, right? And because of our campaign to go after that other target sector, now we've increased web traffic from 68,000 to 74,800. That's a 10% increase, pretty good. Now, because we've increased that, hey, let's look to have better offers on our website, taking our site-wide conversion rate from 1.5% to 2% site-wide. Now we've generated 1,500 conversions as opposed to the original scenario where we've only generated 1,000. Okay, let's improve our MQL to SQL, or marketing qualified lead to sales qualified lead, by 10% by doing some really good nurturing. Great, now we have 600 people that are in this formula. Our sales ops to proposals, right? How many opportunities turned into actual sales leads? If we could tweak that up by just 10% by having a better sales effort or sales training or sales experience, great. Now we have 359 sales opportunities versus 168 in the old model. Let's cut our sales cycle days by 10 days. That'll be able to do that through great reference reels and testimonials and validation why you're the obvious choice to do business with. Let's really train our salespeople and give them new tools to increase our close rate to 30% from 20%. And let's get 15% of our existing clients to reorder versus 10%. So modest changes in each one of these metrics. Look at the compound effect of the revenue. Instead of going from $314,000 a month, by increasing just 8 of these Cyclonic Buyer Journey metrics, now we have almost $1 million in revenue. And that's the crazy, crazy impact of having the understanding of what the metrics are and the insights that come from them and how you can make changes to improve your business. So if you would like a 300% increase in results each month, I guarantee you, if you take a hard look at some of the metrics in each stages, it'll make it easier for you to do that. So you should be excited. As we conclude today's section, you have been automatically entered to win one of 30 Smash the Funnel audiobooks. We'll alert you if you're one of the winners, but just by downloading this piece of content and registering, you're in the running. Also, there's some exclusive content, because the only way you know about the Cyclonic Buyer Journey Framework Playbook is by sitting in on this session. So you'll get a link where you can download some of your own materials where you can use those internally to make sure that you can plot out the sales and marketing framework as well. So Mike, give us a little bit of a preview of what you're going to be working on tomorrow with BigCommerce.
Yeah, so the session tomorrow is talking about really the next step in the process. So the buyer journey is the first step, but the second step is learning how to organize strategy, tactics, analytics, and technology, because marketing, sales, and service has become so complex. There's a big push to think it through in a lot more details. And these 4 pillars are, again, this is the square 2 methodology. We do a ton of thinking before we start working. We're not fans of random acts of marketing. So we really think through the strategy around almost every single thing we're going to execute, which helps us decide what tactics to select, how to orchestrate the tactics, which is the process of kind of sewing them together. So 1 + 1 = 3. How are we going to track those tactics and optimize those tactics? And how do we deploy technology to make this easier for us? So we're going to talk about that tomorrow, and we're very happy to have BigCommerce join us. They're going to talk about this new trend we've noticed of B2B companies looking at e-commerce channels. It's so difficult to sell today, right? You can't visit, you can't call on people, that you can't even call them in their office. No one's in their offices, and all the shows and everything are canceled. We've seen a lot of B2B companies adding e-commerce channels to their distribution networks and doing it very effectively. So our friends at BigCommerce are going to talk about that.
Sounds exciting. Can't wait to see it, Mike. Once again, everybody, thanks for sitting in. Join us for office hours this afternoon from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and ask all the questions you want to a series of folks that will really help you think differently about your sales and marketing. Thanks so much for sitting in, and we'll see you down the road.
Thanks, everybody.